Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. And in this video, we are once again here with Dimitri to learn how to use IMFD. In all the previous videos, we were keeping things fairly simple, just going back and forth between the moon. But now we're going to learn a little bit about how to use interplanetary MFD to go to some of the other planets. In this example, at least, we're going to go to Mars. So we are here at Cape Canaveral in the Delta Glider. The date happens to be Sunday, November 3rd, 2013, which was actually last week. The real date for today is November 9th. So Dimitri, what do we need to do with IMFD to go to Mars?
Okay, well, again, we're going to set a target intercept program. This time our target is going to be obviously Mars, and we will see how interplanetary MFD finds a solution for that, and how to select which one is the best solution in order to get to the planet that we want.
Okay, so we bring up interplanetary MFD. I'm not sure if it matters necessarily which side, but we'll go to menu, and then we wanted target intercept. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's in the course program, and that's highlighted by default, so we'll hit set and then target Mars. And actually, I believe by doing this, we technically have a solution right here, and if we were really lazy, we could just use this solution.
Yes, you can go ahead and fly this right away.
Yeah.
But of course you can set up to see if you can get a better solution. Actually, right now, November of this year, is when the launch windows to Mars start.
Yeah, as a matter of
We
fact,
have
the
launch.
India just sent their first.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, interplanetary MFT works this way. You set up the date that you want to leave the planet you are at, and you set the date that you want to arrive at the target planet, and it tries to figure out a solution. The delta V that it's going to need in order to get the spacecraft named Earth, this is what I call it, in order to get a spacecraft from this orbit to this orbit, to the blue line over here, and get to your target, this is the delta V, the OV, outward velocity, that you are going to use. And below that, the intercept velocity is the velocity relative to your target. Of course, this is as if you have a spacecraft over here and a spacecraft over here. This changes when you want to make an eject burn or your velocity of the arrival.
Okay, so do we want to start by adjusting the date that we're going to leave, or do we want to start by adjusting the date we're going to arrive?
Well, here we have to make a choice, and we want to see if we want to make a journey for a minimum delta V or for a specific flight time.
Okay.
And this is completely up to us. Usually a normal journey to Mars takes about 8-9 months if we are going to use minimum delta V solution. But we can also use a specific flight time, let's say something about 6 months, and try to find the minimum delta V solutions for that one, whichever you want.
Okay, well, let's go for the minimal delta V and see what we can come up with for saving the most fuel.
Okay, so as you can see, we already have a solution right now. That's about, what, 277 days?
Yeah.
It will take to fly this plan, and this is the cost. A good practice for the first setup is to go and lock the time of flight, and then start adding days to the arrival. Because the time of flight will be locked, it will also add as many days to the departure. And we will do that until we get a minimum delta V solution, and then we can unlock the time of flight and finally adjust the departure and arrival until we get the absolute minimum.
Okay, so the solution that it found gives us a total flight time of about 277 days. So we come down here to the TOF unlock, and we'll toggle that to locked. And what we're telling interplanetary MFD is that we want to see if we can get a little bit better solution for delta V, but we want to keep the time frame, so we're going to stick with that 277 days, just at the start.
Exactly, exactly. That's just a little bit faster way in order to get a minimum delta V solution.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could simply start right now without locking the time of flight and simply start changing the arrival and departure.
Okay, so with the time of flight locked, we'll come here to the MJD, and I guess it doesn't actually matter if we use this one or that one. Since the time of flight's locked, it's going to adjust both of them.
Exactly, but you want to use at least a 10x at this stage, or even perhaps a 100x.
Okay, let's see what 100 does. And as we go forward in time, we can see that we are definitely improving our delta V. We're down to 3.3, 3.2. Okay, now it's actually going the other way, so let's go to a 10x adjustment and start taking away some time. And 3.22 was the lowest that I saw there. Let's go down to 1x. Yep, 3.22 is as low as I'm seeing.
Okay, now this, and I know this from experience, of course, someone who is not experienced with the planned IMFD cannot know this, but for a minimum delta V solutions, you're usually somewhere around 2800, 2850. So this, to me, that I have experience with IMFD, looks like an expensive solution, and then I can explain why. You can see over here that you have a lot, this is the ejection inclination of the hypothetical orbit relative to the orbit of the Earth. And this basically means that we are using a lot of plane change right now in order to get to Mars. And if you open up TransX MFD of the right side, you will see that this point of intercept over here is nowhere near the nodes.
Okay, so we'll go transx on this side just for the sake of seeing things. We'll go escape, forward, then Mars, and then we'll put in a little bit of delta V just so we have information. And here we can see the line of nodes in transx, and we can see that where we're encountering Mars over here is obviously nowhere close to that white line that we're seeing over here.
So that means that you need a lot of plane change, and that of course takes the total delta V up. And you can also tell it by looking at this number over here that you're using a lot of plane change.
So to fix that, I'm guessing we could unlock the time of flight and maybe start working with the time to leave and or the time to arrive, and that might help our relative inclination.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go do that. Let's unlock the time of flight. And let's start by adjusting the arrival. So let's go to 10x and put in some plus. That's bringing the delta V down. But it's actually, as I do that, I can see I'm getting farther away from, the line of nodes over here for transx. So I'm...
Yes, but well, there are lots of factors that take into account, because you can also see that this side of the Earth and Mars orbit is also the closest one. So yes, you do move further away from the line of nodes, but you are using less prograde to get here. You see how small this distance is relative to this side.
Yeah. Okay, so now that the arrival time's been adjusted to its lowest point, let's work with the departure time a little bit. See if we can refine things even more. And 59. Now let's go back to the arrival date, because anytime you make any adjustment, it helps to go to the other variable and see if you can go even lower, and here we are. And once again, we're at the lowest point, so let's go back to the departure time. About right there, and again over to the arrival. Departure. Arrival. And departure. And I'm not sure how low we'll be able to get this, but I believe when the numbers stop working in our favor, that's kind of when we know we've done the best we can do.
Yes, and there is sometimes you can see right now that you are pushing the date and the arrival, and you are going closer and closer to the node. So sometimes it may drop all the way to the node. So basically, you're going to find the minimum delta V solution by clicking one step at a time. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, I'm happy with this. This is how many days it's going to take. This is the delta V. I'm going to fly this plan.
Yeah, yeah, you can kind of, at least for the sake of your own time, you can reach diminishing returns where saving 1 meter a second just isn't worth your own personal time in the
Exactly.
in the simulator anymore. And here I can see now, when I went from the arrival to the departure, no matter which variable I use, or rather, no matter which direction I go, it's not getting any better. So now that kind of means that we're at the lowest point. You can see with working with either one, we're not going to get any lower than that 2.968, which I guess is still about 200 meters higher than it should be.
About 100 meters, 150 meters, something like that. But then the minimum solution, if we were going to arrive at a node, and probably this node, because this is the lowest delta V trajectory at this node. This node over here takes a little bit more. But okay, it's a pretty good plan. We're not talking about a very big difference in the ejection burn.
Yeah. Okay, so here then, once we know what we want to do, then typically the next step of the setup would be to figure out how to get into orbit.
Exactly. This is going to tell us in what kind of orbit around the Earth we need to get, and then eject from that orbit. So first we're going to use the surface launch program and launch into the correct heading.
Okay, and let's bring that up on this side so that we have our map over there. And we're bringing up surface launch because we're on the surface. And I'm guessing that we need to tie this to the...
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to need to share the information from the left.
Yeah, we have no data over here, so let's go plus to surface launch.
No, you had the data over here. You had course program, but you have not connected the two interplanetary IMFDs.
Oh, that's correct. Okay, so I need to go menu, then page, then I need to share the left side with the right side. The left side has always got an ID of 0, so we do that. Then surface launch, and now we have data. Okay. So according to this...
well, first we're going to have to set the date with the scenario editor to be close to this. Perhaps 1 day earlier.
Okay. Yeah, that's right, because currently we're 56599, and we're not leaving for a little while, so let's bring up the scenario editor and set the date. We'll set it to 1 day before that, so 56645.177. And the reason that we want to set it 1 day ahead is because we want to, if possible, we would like to take off from Earth with a 90-degree heading, and we want to take off before this date as close, we want to take off as close to this date as we can with a 90-degree heading. If we're a little bit before it or a little bit after it, that's fine. But by setting the date to 1 day before, we can find out when the launch opportunities are leading up to this number, leading up to this date. We can find out if we have a 90-degree launch heading, before that point.
And the surface launch program already tells you that you can launch at a 90-degree heading in 23,000 seconds. Of course, you get 2 chances to launch at to the best heading per day, so we can actually skip this one and go to the next.
Yeah, so
because
basically
we have a full day.
Yeah, so basically over here, something that Transx doesn't have, that this is pretty nice, is IMFD here where it says heading 90. That's telling us that we can have a 90-degree heading from this launch site, from this latitude, and that's important to point out because there are some launch sites where you might not have a solution for a 90-degree heading. Luckily, we do. And we're going to have that solution in 23,000 seconds. Now, 23,000 seconds is about a quarter of a day, so there's a good chance that we can get to this one and then skip it and go to the next opportunity for a 90-degree heading and still be within our launch, still be within our launch time frame.
Yeah, and even if we pass it by a few thousand seconds, it really doesn't make that much difference to the flight.
Yeah. So we just want to get as close to the MJD as possible, but more importantly, to have that 90-degree heading. Okay, so let's warp time forward and go a little bit faster. Getting up to that 90-degree heading. Now we'll skip it, and now we're going to go around to the next time that we have that 90-degree heading. Okay, so we are, oh, we're still 17,000 seconds out. I thought it was 17 seconds.
I think you passed it again, but again, it's no problem.
Let's see, 56646. Yeah, we're a little bit past it. It's 5:03 according to this, and we're at 5:029. So we'll be.
You can see that the date now is counting the time that we are right now, and still there is no problem. There was no change in the escape vector.
Yeah.
A day difference in the launch window doesn't really matter.
So we're going to be about 12,000 seconds past that time technically, but again, we'll have that 90-degree heading, and that'll be more important. But if you, say, for example, had a 90-degree heading 100 seconds or 1,000 seconds prior to the MJD, that would be pretty much ideal. So let's get around.
You want to get it as close as possible, but even if you do have up to a day difference, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and it probably matters a little bit more for other planets than it does certain ones like Mercury, for example.
Yeah, there you probably have to time the correct hour, or even better.
Yeah, Mercury's really picky. And then whereas Jupiter, you could probably be off by a week.
Jupiter, you can pretty much take off anytime you want.
Yeah.
It's hard to miss it.
So what we're going to do here is we're going to get the time all the way to 0, and then we're going to pause the simulator, and we're going to put the Delta Glider into orbit using the scenario editor just to save that, 12 or 15 minutes of time. Okay, so let me get ready to pause here. Okay, so here we are, we're at 0. Now this would be, of course, normally if you were going to take off and get into orbit, you wouldn't wait for the time to get to 0. You would take off about 300 seconds because you want to have time to reach half orbital velocity. Is that right?
Exactly. If it takes you 10 minutes to get into orbit, you want to take off 5 minutes earlier.
Right. All right, so scenario editor, edit, orbital elements, and I'm going to change that to kilometers. We want there we go, 6571.01 and a 0 inclination. And is that all we need to set up?
The inclination has to stay the same, the 0 eccentricity, because I cannot see the scenario editor.
Oh, I meant.
Okay, okay, now I can see it. Yeah, the screen was stuck for a while. Yeah, okay. We're okay. You can see hit the apply button, and we're going to be in a pretty much the same orbit we would have if we launched, but we're going to be not going to be as far downrange.
Yeah, I meant to say 0 eccentricity, not inclination. So, all right, let's unpause, raise the landing gear, because why not? So basically that would be exactly the same thing as if we just took off and got into orbit, but again, like Dimitris said, we would just be, 1,000 or 2,000 kilometers further downrange, but otherwise we're in the same orbit. Okay, now we are in orbit, so how do we go to Mars?
Okay, we are done. So we are done with the surface launch program, and we're going to use the orbit eject program.
Okay, is there any particular side we want to bring that up on? Probably the right side?
The right side over here. You can keep the course on the left, and again, this is simply changing the number of the IMFD you're going to share. If you had opened the course program on the right side when we started, we would have used the left side. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's up to anyone's preference. Now, first you have to select on the orbit eject, you have to connect to the course program, because right now it's showing you a higher orbit.
Okay, so we have higher orbit selected. We'll just press plus until we get over to the course. Now we're connected to the course program on the left side.
Okay, and now you can see that relative to the date to this plan, to the hypothetical trajectory here, to the blue line, we are out of plane by 0.064 degrees. Now, from what I remember, we also have the non-spherical gravity sources turned on, correct?
That's right.
So we don't have to worry about getting this exactly to zero, because in half an orbit we are going to get a little bit of change in the relative inclination. So what we can do right now is simply hit page, burn vector, and go ahead and auto burn this plan. But because we're going to do another example of this flight by using a maneuver instead of the auto burn function, it would be good to save the plan over here, save the scenario over here, and so we can pick it up later and do another example of a more sophisticated way to get to Mars with less corrections.
Okay, so I've saved here, so we can use this example, and then in the following example, all the steps that you've done so far would be the same, but here you have two options, at least two options going forward, and right now we're going to focus on the easier of the two.
And one thing that I want to show is that if for some reason you did the manual launch and you did not get the angle correct, if it's up to less than 1 degree, IMFD can handle the burn automatically. It will make the corrections for you. If it is more than 1 degree, then you will have to change something. Either make a plane change maneuver over here, but sometimes it is easier to simply select a different date of arrival, and you will see your inclination changing. And you can do this right now if you want, and what's the eject inclination.
Okay, so over here on the right side, we're going to have the MJD selected and highlighted. And do we want to go to a 1x adjustment at this point?
To 1x, perhaps even at 10x, but change the number of seconds instead of the... But 1x, and it will illustrate what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so with 1x, and we kind of watch the EIN over here on the right side. And yeah, you can see by putting in a little bit of plus, it's getting higher. And maybe if we go back a little bit, yeah, we got a lower EIN.
So simply by selecting to arrive at Mars 1/10 of a day earlier, you did not have to make a plane change, and you were on the correct orbit. So that's useful to know if sometimes the launch goes wrong. You don't have to scrap the whole scenario and start from the beginning. You can simply adjust your arrival by a couple of days, and you will get a pretty similar solution to what you had before.
That's really good to know. And if I'm not mistaken, if you're out by more than 1 degree, does the EIN sort of warn you by changing to orange?
Yes, it will change it to orange. You will see here that this will change it to orange. So you will also have a message here. I think it says a wrong inclination or something like that.
Can we adjust the MJD on the left just to see that?
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, let's bump it forward a little bit, and then once we get above 1, actually, I guess it didn't change colors. Maybe if we go a little higher. I thought it did as well, because I remember seeing it.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, but it might have been some other situation.
Maybe it doesn't change because we already had the correct solution.
Yeah. Okay, at any rate, let me get that back.
Another useful feature that you can see here, if you want to keep exactly the same date of arrival, and you want to make the plane change manually over here, this is very useful to know. You know when you are arriving at the node and how many meters per second you are going to need for the plane change. So this is PLC plane change. And also you know if it's going to be normal plus or normal minus by using the sign over here.
Yeah, this is exactly the same way base sync works. When you're coming, it tells you PLC, it tells you which orientation to use, and it gives you this information as well. So for people that happen to be familiar with base sync, then this here should be very familiar to you. You can see the line of nodes here. Go ahead.
It was also the same author, wasn't it? Harmonic is the...
Yeah.
Made the base sync. I must learn to use that MFD, but I've been doing everything with interplanetary MFD and TransX. I never really had to use anything else. The only other MFDs that I use are the aerobrake MFD, of course, and the burn time calculator.
Yeah, there's more that base sync can do that I don't use it for. I just simply use it for its orbit predictions because it can predict out to 8 orbits in the future for, base alignment, and I find it really useful for that. Otherwise,
Yeah, that
it
can be pretty good. Yeah.
it has like its own deorbit program, and I don't even know how to use that. So, okay, so now we're pretty well set here. So I believe. Is there anything that we need to do, or do we just warp time forward to the eject point and
You
do the
can
auto burn?
already press the auto burn button. You don't even have to. You can press the auto burn button now, and then time warp, and IMFD will take care of the burn.
Okay, so we press the page again to switch between these variables over here on the right, then AB, and you can see that the weighting is going. So we can just time warp to 1,000, and it will slow down on time, and it will do the burn. So quite simple, really. I mean, if you really go through these steps, step 1, 2, 3, a very, very simple way to get to Mars. And coming up here on the burn, and we're already coming up on 30 minutes. Do you want to put the mid-course corrections into another video, or do you just want to kind of fit it into this one?
Yeah, perhaps it would be best to finish the burn and make another video for the corrections and arrival at Mars.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. That way we don't have to rush through the next part, and we can still keep the videos down to around the 30-minute mark. Okay, so yeah, obviously IMFD is taking care of the burn for us, like it does, in all the other situations. And when it's done, then we would have a, and the other thing that's obviously really nice about IMFD is just the fact that it does orient the vessel for you and, do the burn. I've actually read, on orbiter forums, some people kind of get almost an elitist attitude, like, well, you should use IMFD because you have to orient the vessel. Well, I don't know about that. I think this way is a lot more realistic. But I do understand the idea of, learning multiple methods to do the same thing, because overall you get a much better understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's about using the MFT and understanding what's going on, or simply pressing the buttons and get to Mars. That's the difference. Because you see how simple it is. You target Mars, you don't care about if we could get pretty much the same method, or exactly the same method, and without even caring about the list delta V or the dates of arrival and that, and we will still get to Mars. But then it would be simply a click and get to Mars button. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't consider that to be flying or in orbiter. So you might as well use the scenario editor and land on Mars when you want.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance there. It gets to a point where you're just pressing buttons in an order and you don't have any clue at all what's going on. I like the balance where I know what I'm doing, but then I basically tell the MFD to do this particular thing and then to do it on time. The only thing about TransX that I wish I could do differently is basically have it start and stop the burns at exactly the right time, and you can do that a little bit by using burn time calculator, but you're still off by a half a second one way or the other, and that can make a big difference in some cases. And then you got to fix things with translation. So okay, having said all that, let's go ahead and end this part here then, and we'll pick up in the next part, warp time forward, get out to Mars, do our mid-course corrections and such. Once again, thank you for watching. Please hit that like button down below. Leave a comment for Dimitri, letting him know that you appreciate all this great information here that we're getting. Because I've had at least a dozen or more requests in the last 6 or 8 months for people just begging me to make IMFD videos because they really want to know how to use it. And I just keep having to tell people, look, I'll get around to it when I can because I don't even know how to use it myself. So thanks again to Dimitri for helping us all out. Check for his YouTube channel down in the description below, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video, and in this video we are once again here with Dimitri to learn how to use IMFD. In all the previous videos we were keeping things fairly simple, just going back and forth between the moon, but now we're going to learn a little bit about how to use interplanetary MFD to go to some of the other planets. In this example, at least, we're going to go to Mars. So we are here at Cape Canaveral in the Delta Glider. The date happens to be Sunday, November 3rd, 2013, which was actually last week. The real date for today is November 9th. So Dimitri, what do we need to do with IMFD to go to Mars?
Okay, well, again, we're going to set a target intercept program. This time our target is going to be obviously Mars, and we will see how Transx finds interplanetary MFD.
There first.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, interplanetary MFD works this way. You set up the date that you want to leave the planet you are at, and you set the date that you want to arrive at the target planet. And it tries to figure out a solution. The delta V that it's going to need in order to get the spacecraft named Earth, this is what I call it, in order to get a spacecraft from this orbit to this orbit, to the blue line over here, and get to your target, this is the delta V, the OV, outward velocity, that you are going to use. And below that, the intercept velocity is the velocity relative to your target. Of course, this is as if you have a spacecraft over here and a spacecraft over here. This change when you want to make an eject burn or your velocity of the arrival. Finds a solution for that, and how to select which one is the best solution in order to get to the planet that we want.
Okay, so we bring up interplanetary MFD. I'm not sure if it matters necessarily which side, but we'll go to menu, and then we wanted target intercept. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's in the course program, and that's highlighted by default, so we'll hit set and then target Mars. And actually, I believe by doing this, we technically have a solution right here, and if we were really lazy, we could just use this solution.
Yes, you can go ahead and fly this right away.
Yeah.
But of course you can set up to see if you can get a better solution. Actually, right now, November of this year, is when the launch windows to Mars start.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the India just sent. Okay, so do we want to start by adjusting the date that we're going to leave, or do we want to start by adjusting the date we're going to arrive?
Well, here we have to make a choice, and we want to see if we want to make a journey for a minimum delta V or for a specific flight time.
Okay.
And this is completely up to us. Usually a normal journey to Mars takes about 8-9 months if we are going to use minimum delta V solution. But we can also use a specific flight time, let's say something about 6 months, and try to find the minimum delta V solutions for that one, whichever you want.
Okay, well, let's go for the minimal delta V and see what we can come up with for saving the most fuel.
Okay, so as you can see, we already have a solution right now. That's about, what, 277 days?
Yeah.
It will take to fly this plan, and this is the cost. A good practice as for the first setup is to go and lock the time of flight, and then start adding days to the arrival. Because the time of flight will be locked, it will also add as many days to the departure. And we will do that until we get a minimum delta V solution, and then we can unlock the time of flight and finally adjust the departure and arrival until we get the absolute minimum.
Okay, so the solution that it found gives us a total flight time of about 277 days. So we come down here to the TOF unlock, and we'll toggle that to locked. And what we're telling Interplanetary MFD is that we want to see if we can get a little bit better solution for delta V